I need money for a fast horse, I said. Leaving town? She arched a pale eyebrow. You never struck me as the running away sort. I'm not running, I said, but I need to cover some ground, 70 miles before it gets much after noon. Devi widened her eyes a bit. A horse that could make that trip is going to cost, she said. 3 minutes later, I strode towards the doors of the nearest livery. A well-dressed Kildish man smiled at my approach and stepped forward to greet me. "Ah, young sir," he said, holding out his hand. "My name is Kairva. Might I ask—" "I need a horse," I said, shaking his hand quickly. "Healthy, well-rested and well-fed, one that can take 6 hours of hard riding today." "Certainly, certainly," Kairva said, rubbing his hands together and nodding. "All things are possible with the will of God. I'd be pleased to—" "Listen," I interrupted again. "I'm in a hurry, so we're going to skip the preliminaries. I won't pretend to be uninterested. You won't waste my time with a parade of hacks and nags. If I have not bought a horse in 10 minutes, I will leave and buy one elsewhere." I met his eye. "Linsatva?" The Kildish man was aghast. "Sir, the purchase of a horse should never be so rushed. You would not pick a wife in 10 minutes, and on the road a horse is more important than a wife." He gave a bashful smile. "Even God himself didn't—" I cut him off yet again. "God's not buying a horse today. I am." The thin Kildish man paused to collect his thoughts. "Right," he said softly, more to himself than to me. "Lynn, come around and see what we have." He led me around the outside of the stables to a small corral. He gestured near the edge of the fence. "That dapple mare is as steady a horse as any you could hope for. She'll take you—" I ignored him and looked over the half-dozen hacks that stood idly inside the fence. Though I had neither means nor reason to keep a horse, I knew good from bad, and nothing I saw here came close to suiting my needs. You see, troopers live and die by the horses that pull their wagons, and my parents had not neglected my education in this area. I could size up a horse by the time I was 8, and a good thing too. Townsfolk regularly tried to pass off half-dead or gingered-up nags to us, knowing that by the time we discovered our mistakes, we'd be miles and days away. There was a world of trouble waiting for a man who sold his neighbours some sickly hobble, but what was the harm of swindling one of the filthy, thieving Roo? I turned to face the caviller, frowning. "You've just wasted 2 precious minutes of my time, so I'm guessing you still don't understand my position here. Let me be as plain as possible. I want a fast horse ready for hard riding today. For this, I will pay quickly, in hard coin, and without complaint." I held up my newly heavy purse in one hand and shook it, knowing he could tell the ring of true Kildish silver inside. "If you sell me a horse that throws a shoe, or starts to limp, or spooks at shadows, I will miss a valuable opportunity, a quite unrecoverable opportunity. If that happens, I will not come back and demand a refund. I will not petition the constable. I will walk back to Imre this very night and set fire to your house. Then, when you run out of the front door in your nightshirt and stockel cap, I will kill you, cook you, and eat you, right there on your lawn while all your neighbours watch." I gave him a deadly serious look. "This is the business arrangement I am proposing, Kairva. If you're not comfortable with it, tell me and I will go elsewhere. Otherwise, leave off this parade of drays and show me a real horse." The short-keeled looked at me, more stunned than horrified. I could see him trying to come to grips with the situation. He must think I was either a raving lunatic or the son of some important noble, or both. "Very well," he said, letting all the ingratiating charm fall from his voice. "When you say hard riding, how hard do you mean?" "Very hard," I said. "I need to go 70 miles today, dirt roads." "Will you need saddle and tack too?" I nodded. "Nothing fancy, nothing new." He drew a deep breath. "Fine. And how much do you have to spend?" I shook my head and gave a tight smile. "Show me the horse, and name your price." "A Volder would do nicely. If he's a little wild, I won't mind if it means he's got energy to spare. Even a good Volder mix could serve me. Or a Keth-Selhan fourth horse? Kayava nodded and led me back towards the wide doors of the stable. I do have a Keth-Selhan, a full blood, actually. He made a gesture to one of the stable hands. Bring out our black gentleman, double quick. The boy sprinted off. The cavalier turned back to me. Gorgeous animal. I ran him through the traces before I bought him, just to be sure. Galloped him a full mile, and he hardly even worked up a sweat. Smooth a gait as ever I felt, and I'd not lie to your lordship on that account. I nodded. A full-blooded Keth-Selhan was exactly suited to my purpose. They had a legendary endurance, but there would be no avoiding the price either. A well-trained fourth horse was worth a dozen talents. How much are you asking for him? I'll want 2 solid marks, he said, without any hint of apology or wheedling in his voice. Merciful tailor, 20 talents. He'd have to have silver shoes to be worth that much. I'm in no mood for a lengthy dicker, Kayava, I said shortly. You've made me well aware of that, my lord, he said. I'm telling you my honest price. Here, you'll see why. The boy hurried out leading a sleek monster of a horse. At least 18 hands tall, proud head and black from his nose to the tip of his tail. He loves to run, Kayava said with genuine affection in his voice. He ran a hand along the smooth black neck. And look at that colour. Not so much as a pale whisker. That's why he's worth 20 if he's worth a single shim. I don't care about the colour, I said absent-mindedly, while I looked him over for signs of injury or old age. There was nothing. He was glossy, young, strong. I just need to move quickly. I understand, he said apologetically, but I can't just ignore the colouring. If I wait a span or two, some young lord will pay just for the snappy look of him. I knew it was true. Does he have a name? I asked, moving slowly towards the black horse, letting him smell my hands and get used to me. Bargaining can be hurried, but befriending a horse cannot. Only a fool rushes first impressions with a spirited young Keth-Selhan. Not one that's stuck on him, he said. What's your name, boy? I asked gently, just so he could get used to the sound of my voice. He snuffed delicately at my hand, keeping close watch with one large, intelligent eye. He didn't back away, but he certainly wasn't at his ease either. I kept talking as I came closer, hoping he would relax at the sound of my voice. You deserve a good name. I hate to see some lordling with delusions of wit saddle you with some terrible name like Midnight or Sooty or Scut. I came closer and lay one hand along his neck. His skin twitched, but he didn't pull away. I needed to be sure of his temperament as much as his stamina. I couldn't take the risk of jumping on the back of a skittish horse. Someone half clever might dub you Pitch or Scuttle, ill-favoured names. Or Slate, a sedentary name. Heaven forbid you end up Blackie. That's an ill-fitting name for a prince like you. My father always talked to new horses in this way, in a steady, calming litany. As I stroked his neck, I kept speaking without giving any mind to what I said. Words don't matter to the horse. The tone of your voice is the important thing. You've come a long way. You should have a proud name so folk won't think of you as common. Was your previous owner Kildish? I asked. Vevanaloy tuteriam keta palante. I could sense him relax a bit at the sound of the familiar language. I walked onto his other side, still looking him over carefully and letting him get used to my presence. Tu keta? I asked him. Are you cold? Tu mane? Are you a shadow? I wanted to say twilight, but I couldn't bring the Siaru word to mind. Rather than pause, I just bulled ahead, faking it as best I could as I eyed his hooves to see if they were chipped or cracked. Tu Keth-Selhan? Are you first knight? The big black lowered his head and nuzzled me. You like that one, do you? I said with a bit of a laugh, knowing that what really happened was that he had caught scent of the package of dried apple I had tucked in one of the pockets of my cloak. The important thing was that he had a feel for me now. If he was comfortable enough to nuzzle at me for food, we could get along well enough for a hard day's ride. Keth-Selhan seems to suit him for a name, I said, turning back to Kaeva. Anything else I need to know? Kaeva seemed disconcerted. He shies a bit on his right side. A bit. Just a bit. It stands to reason that he's probably a bit prone to spooking on that side too, but I haven't seen him do it. How's he trained? Close rein or trooper style? Close. Fine. You've got 1 minute left to make this deal. He's a good animal, but I'm not paying 20 talents for him. I spoke with certainty in my voice, but no hope in my heart. He was a gorgeous animal, and his colouring made him worth at least 20 talents. Still, I'd go through the motions and hope to squeeze the man down to 19. That at least would leave me money for food and lodging when I got to Trebon. Very well, Kaeva said. 16. Only my years of stage training kept me from gaping openly at his sudden drop. 15, I said, feigning irritation, and that will include the saddle tack and a bag of oats. I began pulling money out of my purse as if the deal was already finished. Unbelievably, Kaeva nodded and called for one of the boys to bring a saddle and tag. I counted the money into Kaeva's hand as his assistant saddled the big black. The keeld seemed uncomfortable, meeting my eye. If I didn't know horses as well as I do, I would have thought I was being swindled. Maybe the horse was stolen, or the man was desperate for money. Whatever the reason, I didn't care. I was due a bit of good luck. Best of all, this meant that I might be able to resell the horse at a bit of a profit after I reached Trebon. Honestly, I would need to sell him as soon as I could manage, even if I lost money on the deal. Stabling, food, and grooming for a horse like this would cost me a penny a day. I couldn't afford to keep him. I strapped my travel sack into a saddlebag, checked the cinch and stirrups, then swung myself up onto Keth-Selhan's back. He danced slightly to the right, eager to be off. That made 2 of us. I twitched the reins, and we were on our way.